Good Wednesday morning, everyone. It is 1 minute now after 8 o'clock. It's Greenville Today with Woody J. and Mary Hayes.
Good morning.
And we start off with our weather forecast. We're expecting some snow this afternoon into tonight, low around 50% chance of some snow tomorrow, and a high of about 37. It'll be partly sunny on Friday and a high near 30, and Saturday partly sunny and a high near 40. Then we're back to a slight chance of rain and snow on Sunday, only a 20% chance, and a high near 50. Back to work on Monday. Showers are likely, cloudy, and a high of 52. So maybe we'll be getting away from all the snow and get it melted off. God gave us the snow, and God taketh it away.
Well, don't get too excited about it.
12 degrees out there. And we turn to Mary with our news this morning. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. And the news on February the 25th is in Greenville, the Brown Bag Book Group will be meeting on March 18th to discuss The Signature of All Things. The author of this book is Elizabeth Gilbert, who also wrote Eat, Pray, Love in 2006, which is a memoir and was turned into a movie starring Julia Roberts. According to reviewer Linda Riley, Gilbert has a gift for language and makes time and place come alive for the reader. The group is open to the public, and the meeting will be held at noon in the Greenville Greene County Library, and you can check out copies of the book at the library as well. U.S. Representative Phil Rowe will conduct a telephone town hall for constituents in the 1st District next Tuesday night. The meeting will be held from 6:35 until 7:35 p.m., and that is Tuesday, March the 3rd, and you'll be able to call in during the meeting to the hotline. It'll be 1-877-229-8493. That's 877-229-8493, and there's a code that goes along with it, 19641. 19641, and if you use that code, you can conversate with Mr. Rowe and give him your opinions on what you think needs to be done in the area politically and what he can do to help out as your representative. Okay, now we're going to move right into one of the stories that's in the news, the Greenville Sun. Is what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, I went to the county commission meeting. Is that Monday night or Tuesday night that I went? Tuesday night.
No, Monday night.
Monday night.
Last night was Tuesday.
Okay.
The snow
has made me lost track of time. Of course, we were not in the studio yesterday. Yesterday morning we ran a previously recorded program because...
No, actually Mary did that. Very good initiative on Mary's part, I must say.
Thank you. I wanted to give you at least something to watch, even though we couldn't be here live. I was snowed in, and Woody was making an attempt to get over the mountain to Asheville, but...
Get over there, find out that the clinic is closed before we get there, because they call. But anyway...
You'd already taken off. They should have called you last night. Well, I guess people didn't realize.
They called. Well, see here, they called me the day, but they called me Monday afternoon. Well, yes, I'm going to be there. So, but anyway,
I'm going to sort of break it down. I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to kind of work from the back forward on the county commission meeting. And first of all, for those of you who are curious about what goes on in a county commission meeting, this was my first one of those.
They can be tedious.
Well, I've gone to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, Long Range Planning Commission, and there was one more, zoning, no, not zoning, some other one.
County anyway,
Budget Committee meeting.
This one.
And then this was the Greenville County, and it was big. It was in the courthouse at the top where they have, I don't know what court they have in there, but there's an actual courtroom building, which I think is important to note. That's where the meeting is held, because when I first got there I got there at like 15 till 6, and I didn't want to go in because I thought court was still going on, and so I did, and because there was something going on before 6, and I'm not exactly sure. I can tell you a little bit.
75 citizens were gathering.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I was there 15 minutes early, and there was some other presentation that was going on about. And I can't tell you all really anything about that other than it was some kind of energy project that they gave a presentation on, and that must have been going on since 5. But yeah, there were about 75 people there. There's 21 commissioners, and then the mayor, who doesn't vote. So the 21 commissioners vote, and one commissioner...
Unless there's a tie, and he has to...
Oh, is that... Okay. So anyway, there were 20, there theoretically could have been a tie then because there were 21 commissioners, one was gone. And I think it had something to do with the weather. Tim Shelton was not present for some reason. I think they said it had something to do with his job and related to the weather. I'm not really sure what he does. So there were 20 commissioners present. And they had, one of the biggest issues was the emergency management service or emergency management system. I'm not really sure which one that is. Which one is it? Is
It's
it
the
different
EMS
service or
budget.
the EMS
So we'll
budget?
just go with that.
Right. The EMS budget. Now, in an attempt to make, now I'm going to go kind of backwards here, but in an attempt to make the budget line up, previously they had cut $200,000, approximately $200,000 out of the county budget. And when they did so, they told taxpayers that it was going to require the shutting of the South Green emergency branch of the emergency managed services. So they shut that down. Well, now there's some debate because what they want to do now is go ahead and reinstate that. They really need that $200,000. They don't have any emergency medical services out there in South Green. They need them. So they came back to the commission and said, hey, we need that. We need to redo the station out there. We need $200,000 put back in the budget to take care of us. And I think the issue that keeps coming up over and over and over again at these county commission meetings is nobody knows where the money's coming from and nobody knows where the money's coming to. These budgets that are coming in from the various department heads of Greene County, they're not line iteming their budgets. And so this is an issue also with what a line item is, in case you don't know, is if I come to you with a budget and say I need $2,000, well, you can just hand me $2,000. When I leave, I don't have any accountability to you for that $2,000. But if I come to you and I say, I need $2,000, I need $1,000 of it for my car payment, I need $1,000 of it for my house payment, and that's what I need it for. I've line itemed. I've told you exactly what I'm going to spend that on. And that's what many citizens and many county commissioners are beginning to ask some of these department heads, what is in your budget? Okay, so some of the commissioners brought up the fact that none of the commission has evaluated how much surplus money EMS has made since 6 employees quit and fuel prices went down. This is a quote from Zach Neese. It disturbs me to death that we haven't looked at the books, Neese says. When we have problems, we need to fix these problems right now. But we let it go on and build up. Who knows where we are at? You couldn't run a business acting the way we are. Okay, and what they did, as they couldn't come to any kind of determination, and this was the last thing that they discussed, was the EMS budget, so I'm going from the back to the front. They couldn't really make a determination about what to do about that situation, so they voted 14-6 to table the motion about the emergency management services. So that was the very last thing that happened. And I'm going to tell you, that meeting went on for 2 hours and then probably another hour. So it was a long, long meeting, and there was a lot of stuff that was pedantic and a lot of little minuscule things that I felt like people shouldn't be arguing about, but they were kind of wasting time arguing about it. But we'll go through that. Okay, so like I said, there were about 75 people there. I felt like the building was full. It was full. There were a lot of people. The courtroom was full. And the first thing they did, they brought up the minutes, obviously, and they approved the minutes from the prior meeting. Then they started in on old business. Now, the first matter of old business is that if there's a county commission meeting that ends up getting canceled because of an act of God, that county commission meeting, according to the rules, county commission rules, must be rescheduled the next day. Now, there was a county commission scheduled for last week. It got canceled because of weather, but then there were 3 days of bad weather, so they were unable to reschedule it the next day or the next day or the next days, which is why it was Monday. Okay.
That would be that act of God, I would think.
Right, but there's nothing written in there that says that. There's nothing written in there that says. Anyway, so first thing that they did is they sort of rewrote that to say that it will be rescheduled not the next day, but it will be rescheduled by the chair of the county commission, and it will be rescheduled at what is considered to be a reasonable amount of time. That's why if we ever have these
the first available date.
Right. So there's not this pressure because the commissioners were in violation of their charter for not having it rescheduled quickly. So that was taken care of, and they decided that the chair is responsible for rescheduling in a reasonable time. Then lady from the Greene County Partnership gave a presentation on something called the 3-Star Program. Now, Greene County is considered to be a 3-star community, which means we're monitored, we're evaluated on our jobs, our fiscal history, our education, our health and welfare. And if we are able to maintain certain standards in this evaluation, we become eligible for grants or money from the government, and we become
from the state government,
right, and we get discount or reduced matching fund fees. And so there was a great urge by the Greene County Partnership and by this little lady that gave a presentation for us to make sure and maintain our eligibility for this program. She said that there was $7.6 million in grants that had come into the area, and that we had saved $240,000 as a result of utilizing the not having to pay, like what it basically means if we're 3-star, that we don't have to pay the matching funds for the grant. Lots of times there are matching funds, so that kind of gets us out of doing that. And then what I consider to be the very most exciting thing happened at the commission meeting. I guess they allow speakers, right? If you have something you want to say, you can call one of the commissioners and get on the
Exactly. It's
agenda.
just like we've been talking about with the mayor and board of aldermen. You can speak at those meetings as well. You just have to follow the process.
3 minutes.
But anyway, you were able to see people standing up and doing what we've been preaching, and it had a profound effect on you.
I sure did, and it was very interesting because this lady named Wendy J. Hankins stood up, walked up to the front. She lives in Hollow Tree Court, and she introduced herself as a member of she's of the city of Greenville, but also Greene County. So there wasn't any delineation about whether she was from Greenville or Greene County. She's from both because she lives in Greenville and she lives in Greene County. I thought that was interesting because that's something you and I have been going around and around about. But anyway, she basically said, and I'm summing up, but she basically said that all of the people that had voted in favor of the wheel tax had failed in representing the citizens of Greene County. She was adamant about it, and she went on to give a scathing criticism of what was going on in the county. She said that reminded the commissioners that they worked for the taxpayers and not for the county government and not for the county workers. They work for taxpayers. She wanted to know, she had many questions. She wanted to know how much has the department saved on fuel costs, because the fuel budget was made when fuel was expensive, and then the fuel prices have gone up and down, so she wanted to know where was the savings for that. She wanted to know about the asphalt plant savings. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
Yeah, I didn't. That's another one of those stories we need to
Okay, so there's an asphalt plant that was supposed to save us money in 2010. I think. And then also she brought up the fact that this lady was very, very knowledgeable, and I genuinely hope we can have her on the program to read
very
the
knowledgeable,
letter.
yet she asked some simple, basic,
the best questions
common
ever.
sense questions.
She wanted to know why we send our teachers at $1,000 a pop to go down to look at a model school in Atlanta when they could be touring the school from Greene County through the internet, through the web. So which I thought was interesting. It cost $1,000 to send a teacher, individual teacher, down there to tour the facility. She wanted to know, why are we doing that? We don't have the money for that. Her whole point was we don't have the money to be doing this stuff. She wanted to know why is there so much overtime? Why is there overtime in the county attorney's office? She wanted to know what revenue in the service departments was at. She wanted to know what incentive programs there were out there to keep employees. I thought this was fascinating. If we want employee productivity, we have to be able to motivate people to become productive in some way.
Well, and that's the thing about it. We have an issue. People should automatically be motivated to do things. And this is This goes back to the personal responsibility, civic duty, and all of that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, she wanted to know what incentive programs do we have in place to encourage our county workers to be more efficient. She sort of felt like the opposite was going on, and that we're paying a bunch of county workers for more time and for overtime, when in fact they should be more productive and more efficient, and that we're losing money as taxpayers as a result of what we're paying our county workers. She called for outside help. She called for auditing of the service departments, of all the departments, for, to see what's going on in these
I
departments.
think each department should have, I don't understand why each department doesn't have a budget and it's spelled out. Because if I were county mayor, I would require this. Because it's hard to govern, it's hard to lead, and hard to make decisions when you don't know where the money is.
Right, and she wanted a line item budget for all government services that are being provided currently. She said that at this point in time, and this is a quote, it would be financially or fiscally irresponsible to approve any budget, for this commission to approve any budget whatsoever, which goes along with what you were saying the other day.
Show me where you made a mistake, son, and I'll help you.
Yeah, that's
like my dad
exactly what
used to
she
say.
said. She said, no more, you are not going to raise taxes, you should not be raising taxes. We want to know what happened to the last tax
we have
money
to
that
figure
we
this
gave
out.
you. Right.
And that's where, and the comment, when we went to that long-range planning commission meeting, and Ted Hensley said, yeah, mistakes have been made, we have to admit that, yeah. Well, we have to go beyond admitting, because you are responsible, even though we have a new mayor in the county.
Right.
He inherited a mess. Some of the commissioners have been there for years, and they've been a part of the mess, and it's time to figure out, okay, I've been taking some notes, and one of the notes that I made on my paper here was, we need, or the county mayor, David Crum, and the people in the county need to revamp the budget system, the way they do a budget. And they need to put items in that budget of where the money is going. And that way there will be clarification. Each department head should be presenting a budget to the county mayor for the mayor and the commissioners, the county commissioners, to sit down at their retreat and go over and start looking at what needs to be done. We got, this just sweeping it under the rug, kicking it down the road, yeah, we admitted it, we made mistakes, let's move forward. No, let's don't move forward, because if we don't address this, then we're more likely to make the same mistakes again.
Right.
We
She
can't afford
said,
that.
Miss Hankins, Wendy J. Hankins, she also said no more tax increases until we've gotten this
Exactly.
fiscal
You know what?
accountability.
You
No
got
more tax,
what
and
you
you
got.
said that the other day.
You got to live on, you know what? I need a raise, you need a raise, but nobody's giving us one. We
Right.
have to live with our circumstances, just
Totally.
like all of you people, and now the government has to do it too.
Right.
What a novel
Okay.
concept. Oh my
Now,
goodness.
she was extremely organized. In fact, I think she might be my new hero. I wanted to go home
Now
with her
you're
and
very
her
organized.
pocketbook.
That's the
No,
thing about you.
I'm not terribly organized, but I'm organized enough, I suppose.
Organized
to survive,
chaos. You've
but
got it down to a science.
There you go. But anyway, she not only pointed out some glaring flaws in the process, but she pointed out some things that we could do to make the system better, which that's what we encourage.
What a novel concept.
We have got to get her to come in here and read this, because she had 3 minutes, and basically at about 3 minutes and 10 seconds, they were done with hearing her. They didn't want to hear her anymore, so they're trying to cut her off.
That small.
Yeah, yes. I'll tell you about that. That's even more. It was high drama, y'all. High drama.
Oh.
But anyway, so her suggestions, the number one suggestion was no more funding for the Greene County Partnership. They have let themselves be known that they are not a public. They're not a public entity in any way. So they should not be receiving taxpayers' dollars to support themselves. So that was her first thing. And let's see. She wanted to evaluate the emergency management system overtime pay. She says that their overtime pay, she's really spent a lot of time with the budget.
Wait a minute, now she's expecting the county commissioner and mayor to treat this like it's a business
Yes.
and a budget.
She
How
seems to
dare her.
think that there's $425,000 in wasted money that could be eliminated if the emergency management system was reconfigured to be similar to what happens in other counties. In other words, you don't have the same employees making a whole bunch of money. You have your employees that work 40 hours a week, and then you bring in other employees. You don't let everybody work 60 plus hours a week because your overtime builds up. So, like you said, running an effective business. She says that there's $120,000 at the 911 office that's going to waste there. Now, I didn't get exactly what she said about that. Hopefully, we'll get her word. But
We'll make that happen.
and the other thing that she saw as a glaring problem was the co-pays. What's happening is for county employees, they've decreased their co-pays and their deductibles down. And what's happened is that's costing, she says, if they do not increase their deductible, or if they do not decrease their deductibles and their co-pays, there would be $1,670,000 extra dollars that could come from that. In other words, if they paid health care like you and I did,
Right.
instead of, on a
Exactly.
modified program. So that's what she went through. And I'm going to tell you the reaction to her reading this letter. One of the commissioners was so offended. He said, "Can you please read the first part of that again? I want to make sure everybody in this room hears what this woman has said about us." And they made her read it 3 times.
So in other words, he made sure that his fellow board members realized she's talking about you and she's talking about you.
Oh, I'm not going to say who it was, but the commissioner was highly offended. Highly. I mean, they were just like, in my opinion, this is just what I observed. I was sitting way back in the corner. But from my observation, she made a lot of people very unhappy, and it was wonderful and hilarious at the same time for me to watch it happen.
Yet
But-
so sad because of the situation and the
but
implications.
What I was thinking when she was reading this letter is I was thinking, number one, we have to get her on the show. I've got to get her on the show. And number two, I was thinking you guys need to hear what she has to say because it's the closest in alignment of any person of everything I've read, of everybody I've heard sum stuff up, is the closest in alignment to what I think you, as the viewers of our show, would agree with is the next step that we need to take in order to fix what's gone wrong in the county.
In other
And
words,
she just boom, boom, but she was so succinct.
in 3 minutes and 10 seconds, she managed to capture the essence of what we've been trying to capture for 4 weeks now.
It was absolutely amazing, and the part that they kept making her read over and over again was that they had failed the taxpayer. Basically, the part where she said, if you voted for the wheel tax increase, you have failed the taxpayers. Because evidently, some of these people got elected on a platform saying that they wouldn't raise taxes, and then they turned right around and raised the taxes.
Oh, isn't that the standard line since George Washington's time?
Well, this is all new for me, Woody. I mean, to see this in operation, this is all new to me. So.
But people that talk about government and say that it's so boring and that it's anything but boring.
Well,
If you understand the vested interest that you should have, whether you're vested in the interest or not, the interest is vested in you. And it's beautiful to see the system when it works properly.
Okay.
And you got a class example, textbook, picture perfect example of government working for the people.
I talked to her later, and she said that she was from New England. In New England, they have town hall meetings that actually matter. Like, people pay attention to if you give a speech at a town hall meeting, then your representatives will actually listen to that speech and pay attention, unlike around here.
Well, the only people that have stepped up with emotion, half-truths, confusing or mixing apples, oranges, peaches, and bananas, and not having a cohesive thought and statement. This lady thought out, she took the time. It matters enough to her. She did her
articulate.
civic duty. Now,
She had the facts and figures to go with it.
exactly. And all that takes is time, effort, and energy on your part. You know, it is our responsibility to know what's going on.
Right.
We have, for so long, oh, that's, you know, I don't get involved in politics. I don't believe in that. You know what? Whatever excuse you tell yourself and give yourself for not getting involved, you're not doing yourself any favors. And
Anyway,
we have to get involved. This lady got involved and
she read her letter, and I was proud of her. Now, after she got done reading her letter, there was another man who came up behind her, and I did not get his name. But he didn't read a letter, but he sort of gave a little speech. And I'm trying to generalize what he said, but he basically said that we have a budget of a certain amount, and I think it's $88 million. But I don't know where I got that. I've written down $88 million. And that 75% of that budget, straight off the bat, is required by law to go to pay for certain things. Okay, so that only about 23% of the money that's in this budget is able to be used on a discretionary basis. So right off the bat, we come out in kind of a negative, you know, that we don't have as much money as we would normally. Money is already earmarked for certain things. 75% of the money is already earmarked. So we really only have the other 25% to play around with. And he seemed very apologetic because the lady before, Wendy Hankins, her letter had hit home. So in such a hard manner, I suppose, that he felt apologetic. So he was like, oh, I don't want to bring you guys down or say that you failed me as a taxpayer. But he did say, quote, the county is in a tailspin and has been since 1990. And his reasons were that there's no Magnavox, no tobacco, and that Greenville has become a ghost town. And he suggested...
Yeah, well, if it hadn't become a ghost town, then we're well on our way.
He suggested that we be progressive. And he said, no matter what happens, we're in trouble. We've got to fix this problem. We're in a crisis. But please, when we're thinking about fixing the crisis, think about being progressive. How to get more industry, how to get more jobs into the area.
In other words, tobacco is a crop that has gone away. We have to figure out what's going to be here the next 50 to 100 years and put that in. Magnavox is gone, tobacco's gone. What are we going to do? Some people are saying solar panels and windmills. Others say, no, don't mess up the view. Be sad to have a view, but no town.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's
really
true.
Sad.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the excitement of the first part of the meeting, and that was over by 6:30. So then we moved into the tedious part of the meeting. First thing that came up was that the 4-H facility has not been collecting motel hotel taxes. They're required to, even if they do. Okay, so if they do a nonprofit like a church or something like that, they don't have to collect these fees.
But if you and I rent it out with the business, then we have to pay a hotel motel tax to them.
Right.
Well, yes.
So they have not been paying this, and so the commission felt like it was their obligation or responsibility to send them some type of notification out there at the 4-H to let them know they needed to be paying the taxes. However, the county attorney, Roger Woolsey, stood up and said, no, we don't go knocking on people's door telling them, hey, if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to be in trouble. That's not how that works, and that it's a dangerous precedent to set.
That's where the IRS works.
Right. And that it's a dangerous precedent to set, and that anybody who runs a business of this nature should be aware that they have to pay these taxes, not to have to be notified to pay the taxes. And so they sort of moved on and decided that they weren't going to notify him, that the proprietor of the 4-H club just needs to be aware of the tax payments that are due. Okay, and then we went into a litany. Let's see if that's... Oh, the other thing, there was a solid waste report, which I didn't get to read or look at the report, and I'm not really sure what it pertained to, but it was approved 20-0. 20 commissioners voted to approve it. And then we moved into the other thing that was up for consideration, which is the constable position. The first constable was considered was Philip Belisario, and the second constable was Steve Lowe. Now, Mr. Belisario had mostly, it appeared to me from his speech, been working inside Greenville. He'd been working at Greenville Terrace, sort of clearing up the drug problem down there. And he was retired from the Air Force. And anyway, then there was Steve Lowe, who'd been with the Sheriff's Department since 1984 and with the Police Department since 1987, and he retired in 2009. He lives in the 2nd District, and he was also on several drug task forces. And so the County Commission was asked to vote on which one of these two gentlemen should fill the constable position, and they decided that it would be Steve Lowe that would fill the position. And then there were a whole bunch of notary republics, like a whole list. It sounded like 50 of them or something that were approved. So those were approved. Then the Glen Hills Utility District gave a presentation. I wanted to get a hold of that report too, but basically what they're doing is they get a certain amount of grants from the government for water infrastructure, utility infrastructure, and they focused that, it was just $52,000, and they focused these funds on, well, there was a public meeting on November 5th, and they selected the area, which was out kind of South Green type area, and they put new water extensions in for people with low income. They improved the water, sewer extensions, and something to do with the fire department. But anyway, so that was approved and that was accepted. And like I said, I didn't get to see the report. I would have loved to. The guy sitting beside me had the report in his hand, and I kept trying to peep over at it, but you know, it was a bound presentation. Okay, then there were some orders of business, which I'm just going to go over really quickly because they're pretty much run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. And it was A through, items A through, I think, L, maybe. So there were a bunch of them. But anyway, the first thing is to relocate Link Mills Road, which was approved. $450 of recycled materials were approved and put back into county budget. The solid waste fund was approved. Litter grant was accepted, and what they had to do is basically what had happened is each individual departments had a certain amount of money that they'd raised. For example, the police department had sold some police cruisers. The garbage department had a truck that they sold, and they got the money, but what they have to do is they have to get approval from the county commission to put the money back into the county budget. And so that's what they did. They just ticked off and approved. They approved every one of them from the. There was $194 in the police and the sheriff's budget that was approved. $34,800 for the safety patrols. Okay, now that $34,800. What they did is the police department or the sheriff's department provided off-duty police officers and the use of their cruisers, police cruisers, in order to provide security at U.S. Nitrogen. Because there was, at one point in time, I think it was suggested, or someone said that people were breaking in and trying to sabotage the plans down there at U.S. Nitrogen. So they have actual hired by U.S. Nitrogen and CNC Millwright, a police force that monitors to make sure there's nobody breaking onto the property and causing damage. And so they had earned $34,800, and they wanted that put back in the sheriff's budget, so they did that. $4,639 recovered for a washer-dryer replacement from insurance payment. They had a washer and dryer that broke at the workhouse, and they got the insurance money back in the amount of $4,639. And so what they have to do is they have to come before the county commission, and they have to say, hey, can we put this $450 $4,000 back in our budget. And the county commission says, yes, we vote that you can have that money back in your budget. So, and there were a lot of these. Confiscated property. I'm all the way down to O. So that's basically how, and then.
You know, one thing that you mentioned that kind of got my attention.
Well, I'm going to finish it up. And then the very last thing they discussed was the Emergency Management Services new budget. They could not come up with a decision on that, and they tabled that. And so that's the meeting in a nutshell.
Kick that can down the road.
Yeah, they couldn't. Well, and I'm going to tell you, it was probably 3.5 hours in. I'm sure everybody was exhausted and ready to go home. It's hard to think about. After a while, you just don't argue about it with another 21 people after, because every single 20 of those people has a different idea of what should be going on because they're all individuals.
Well, that's why there should be brainstorming sessions, and it's kind of like what we're doing with the Long Range Planning Commission meetings. But
right.
You mentioned one of the, you talked about the taxes that hadn't been paid.
Yes.
And you mentioned one of the commissioners talking about a precedent.
Yeah, it was actually the county attorney.
What did he say?
Okay, so let's say you're running the 4-H camp out there.
I'm not paying my taxes.
Not paying your tax. Now, what you're saying, is, well, I was confused. I didn't think I had to pay taxes. Well, that's not how taxes work in the United States. Taxes, there's laws. They're on the book. You're not allowed to say, "Oh, I didn't know about that."
And we're talking about local taxes, not state or federal. We're talking about the local
individual
level.
At the 4-H camp has not been paying, and now some of the people he's not been required. If it's a church or a nonprofit organization,
I'm not worried about those. Let's talk about the money that 4-H owes the county.
Right.
And let's talk about the precedent being set if we force these businesses to pay their taxes.
Well, no, it wasn't the precedent being set forcing them to pay the taxes that was the issue. It was the precedent being set by sending them a letter saying your taxes are due. No, he should know his taxes are due. If the county attorney's argument was, if I get into the habit of having to remind everybody in the county what the laws are regarding when and where they pay their taxes, that's setting a precedent saying that I'm going to do that for everybody, or that I'm going to do that for this person. And then that person can turn around and say, "Oh, well,
you're doing it for that person that hadn't paid their taxes, that are behind. Even the IRS will send you a letter." That argument doesn't hold water. What kind of precedent are we setting by, well, they owe us the taxes, but let's don't go after it? That's the precedent that I'm seeing being said. Hey, if you move to Greene County, you don't have to pay your taxes. Because they don't want to set a precedent of making you pay your taxes.
Maybe I'm not doing a good enough job of explaining what the county attorney said related to that. But basically,
I think you did, but what I'm trying to take it to another point.
Because if they go and have to notify him on something that he should already know about, in other words, it's one thing to present a tax bill. It's another thing altogether to say, "Hey, did you know your taxes are due? We need this." You know what I mean?
You know what? Do you want the tax money or not? Send the damn letter.
They wanted to send a letter, but the county attorney argued that is not, and he spent probably 30 minutes trying to explain this to the commission.
Okay, well, why doesn't he, the county attorney, call the guy and say, "Look, this is the county attorney. You owe us these taxes. Now, we don't want to have to take it to the next step of legal action."
Right, and they
so
kept
we'd
saying,
like you, at some point, somebody has to reach out to this guy, whether it's through a letter or whether it's through a subpoena.
And the argument was that the county attorney made is, no, we don't have to reach out to him. He's in his own trouble. He's not paying state taxes like
if we're not going to reach out to him, we either have to reach out to get the money or we have to reach out to prosecute him.
Right.
Either way, we're reaching out.
I think that the determination that was made, and somebody correct me if you were at the meeting and I'm wrong about this, but what the commission determined is, yes, somebody does need to notify him, but it can't be an official notice, because requiring an official notice every time your taxes are due is setting a dangerous precedent.
How many other businesses are behind on their taxes to the county? Okay?
I don't know, but they kept talking about how nice a guy this is. He's such a
You
nice guy.
know what?
He's
It
such a
doesn't
nice guy,
matter. You know what? There's a lot of people out there that don't like Bill Clinton, but he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that don't like George W. Bush, but he was a nice guy. So,
Right.
you know, saying he's a nice guy and having $1 in your pocket, you can buy yourself a donut.
Well,
You know?
I'm
And-
reporting what happened.
I know, and this is what I'm trying to figure out. How can you say, well, we don't want to set a precedent? Number one, if I don't pay my car payment, I get a notice saying, hey, you didn't pay your car payment. Imagine that. If I don't pay my credit card bill, I get a notice. At least a phone call.
Right.
Right? Okay. That is I know it's not in Greene County, but that's standard business practices everywhere else.
Right.
I don't understand why using common sense and using the law is setting a bad precedent. It seems to me the precedent being set is, hey, come to Greene County, you don't have to pay your taxes, because they don't want to set a precedent at sending you a letter after you're late on them.
Right. So.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't make sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
Okay, it made sense to me, but mainly because I was in the room. I agreed with the county attorney about this when I was in the room, and I don't think I'm doing a good enough job of expressing what he said. Richard Gash this morning, hi Richard, says there's a legal process that's used when you do not pay your taxes, and that's what the attorney kept going back to. He kept saying,
why aren't
there
they
is
using
a legal
that?
process that is involved. Now, if you guys want to use this legal process, I'll be more than happy to help you with it. However, we cannot go outside the legal process and go to the buddy-buddy system and be
Okay.
like, hey, buddy, how you been? How you been doing? Listen,
You
I know
know
you
what?
haven't been
We're
paying your
friends.
taxes, but here's a certified letter giving you a break. Now, I didn't send that letter to
Now, when
anybody else in the
they
county.
going to make a comment, well, he's a nice guy. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a nice guy that's not paying his taxes.
So they wanted, the county attorney encouraged that they go through the legal system rather than because the commissioners were trying to figure out the common sense way to deal with it. Okay, well, we'll write
Legally?
him a letter.
Duh.
Can somebody call him? Does he not know that his taxes are due? I thought he knew. This is the discussion that was going on with the people at the table. We thought he knew his taxes were due. Well, he should have known his taxes were due. I mean, common sense would tell you that, we're going to write him a certified letter and tell him his tax. No. The county attorney said, no. That's not what you're going to do. Somebody wants to let him know that his taxes are due, then you can go ahead and do that. But we're not going to make it a part of the legal process for collection of tax purposes.
Well, my question is, if the taxes are past due, why are the commissioners not saying, look, the next step is the legal process? I don't understand why they... Oh, because he's a nice guy.
Well,
Let's send him a letter.
he's a nice guy, and he misunderstood the laws, tax laws, and so he misinterpreted them. And
Ignorance of the law is no excuse, is what I've always been told.
Right, I sort of think that's what the county attorney was saying. But the people on the commission were kind of like, hey, let's give him a break. He didn't realize that if you're not a nonprofit, you still have to pay the hotel tax. If you're not dealing with it. And that's how it's happened. It was a misunderstanding. So I guess they don't want to fry the guy over a misunderstanding,
Look, Richard made a comment. The county tax office sends a legal notice that informs you of delinquent tax payments. The act of letting people know in casual response. That is true. You do get those. So why are they creating a problem where there's not a problem? Is what I'm seeing from the commissioners.
Yeah,
And everybody making excuses. When people go to say, well, he's a nice guy. Okay, now we're making excuses for this nice guy to not honor his obligations and responsibilities.
And I honestly felt like that's what the county attorney was saying. The county attorney was saying, hey, we got this taken care of. If somebody wants to call the man and, personally tell him, hey, look, your taxes are due. I was at the county commission meeting. I heard your taxes were due. That's one thing. But to build something into the legal process that didn't exist before can be a dangerous precedent.
Why even build something in when you've already got a process? Just use the process you have. I guess that's where my confusion
That's where
is.
the county attorney, now you're understanding what the county attorney was saying.
Okay.
The county attorney's saying, hey, you all don't need to be writing certified letters. You don't need to be wasting the county commission's time
And money.
doing something that's already taken care of. The man knows his taxes are due. You are under no obligation as a commission to let this man know any further about his taxes. So that's, you know, and I like I said, I agreed with, after I sat and heard both sides of it, which it was, I think it was a 30-minute, it was a long discussion. It took a long
Whether
time.
you're a nice guy or not, there's a legal process that is followed by state mandate.
That's what the county attorney kept saying. There is state laws. There are state laws in place to address this issue. The county commission does not need to get involved and start sending certified letters and certified notices and all that to people that are delinquent on their taxes. It's not the responsibility.
No, what the county commission needs to be doing is finding all this money that you were talking about earlier that the lady was asking about. That's what the county commission needs to do.
Yeah, and what I would like to do, we're having Susan Crum-Teague in this morning.
I'm gonna go check.
And she's going to be talking.
Upstairs.
Okay. And she's going to be talking about the gift.
About an hour.
Gift of failure is the name of her presentation that she's going to give at about 9 o'clock this morning. But my goal is to have Wendy Hankins on the show. I would just absolutely love to hear what she has to say. She's a very passionate person, I can tell. I don't know if you can see her Facebook post, or if you want to go, and she'd probably be like, don't encourage everybody to friend me, but I would love to, you know, I'm really enjoying following her on Facebook and see what she has to say. This morning, I'm gonna go ahead, and I think it's important enough to post, but she has a post about the EMS, Emergency Medical Service, and what's going on there with them. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that. This is her suggestion. She's not just the kind of person that's jumping up and down and screaming and saying, we need to take care of this, we need to take care of this. No. She's the kind of person that is actually, you know, sees the problem, and I don't know what her field is or what makes her able to even come up with this stuff, but she has some kind of experience that it seems to me is qualifying her to comment on this with some level of knowledge and to articulate these problems with some level of knowledge. I'm posting on Greenville Today with Woody J and Mary Hayes' Facebook page right now her current status, which is related to the EMS, the situation that's going on with the $200,000 in the EMS. And I'm going to post that right now if you guys want to take a little bit of time to read that. It's not too late. That's what I got out of the county commission meeting, is it is not too late. Yes, we are in a tailspin. Yes, we do have some difficulties as a county, but if we could get in there and get our voices heard, I think that there are issues that we can deal with as citizens of this county. I think there's, you know, there are problems, but there are also suggestions to the problems out there that would work if we could just get somebody to listen to what we're saying. I'll say we. I sort of tend to, like I said, I sort of tended to agree with Wendy and her view on a lot of things. So I'm going to copy and paste this one in here now. Onto the Greenville Today with Woody J page. Now we are having, like I said earlier, we are having Susan Crum in, and tomorrow morning we're going to do something really exciting. My new favoriteest thing in the whole world, and I'm almost afraid to admit to it at this point because I'm so excited about it. But Tim Massey is going to be here in the morning, and he's going to be dressed in costume. I'm not really sure if it's going to be Civil War costume or whether it's going to be American Revolutionary costume, but I am really, really excited about it. In fact, I'm thinking, where do I get a costume? Because I really want to wear, like, seriously, I really want to do the costume thing. But anyway, he's coming in the morning. I think he has a presentation that he's doing to some for some school kids or something like that. So he'll be here at, I think he'll be here right at 8 in the morning. Also, I have edited a video. You all remember me talking about Tim and how he and a gentleman named Wayne Condiff, who Wayne Condiff is very knowledgeable about this area and about the Old Kentucky Road, which the Old Kentucky Road was the road that came through this area, you know, in the 1700s, late 1700s. Everybody went on the Old Kentucky Road. If you traveled through this area, you traveled through this area on the Old Kentucky Road. Now, if you go out into the county, you can find remnants of the Old Kentucky Road bed. And recently, in February, toward the end of February, Tim and Wayne got a good day, and they went out with Elizabeth Blanks and Wilhelmina Williams, and they went out and they traced these road beds all throughout the county, and they shot video footage of it, and what I did is I went ahead and compiled all this footage into one video, and it's very interesting. I'm going to post a link to it on our Facebook page right now. And you guys, before Tim gets here tomorrow, you might want to take a look at that. It's, like I said, it's really interesting. If you have any questions about what Wayne is, he's got a pretty heavy accent, and he can be pretty difficult to understand. So if you have any questions about what he's saying or anything like that, you can ask Tim, or you can ask me. I've heard it enough times. I've listened enough now to where I can tell what he's saying most of the time too. But anyway, I posted that on Facebook. It's called Old Kentucky Road Beds Full Version. I should probably name it Old Kentucky Road Beds in Greene County, though, to have a little better specificity about what the video is about. But anyway, this morning I'm really, really excited about having Susan Crum-Teague in, and she's going to be talking about how to turn your failures into successes. And Woody came and picked me up this morning because I was afraid the roads are kind of icy and still just a little touch dangerous, so I allowed him to drive me into the studio this morning, which he did a good job. I'm not complaining. But anyway, he was telling me on the way in that he's interviewed Susan several times, so I'm going to let him do the interview this morning. But he was telling me that I was really going to get something from her message about this. And I said, I believe this message is for me. I believe that in the last 6 months of my life, I have encountered maybe more failure than I ever have, at least that's the way I feel personally, that I've encountered more types of failure than I have maybe in in all the other years before that put together. It's been a rough 6 months, and when individuals go through something, any individual, not just me, but anybody out there that's struggling this morning, when you go through things like that, I think it's important that you change your thinking. You can't have, as my spiritual mentor, Marcy Cobb, who's lay pastor and choir director at Cedar Creek Presbyterian Church, she calls it stinking thinking. You can't have stinking thinking. You got to have, even if the most terrible thing is happening to you, some of the most happy people in the world are able to get through that because they're able to take their minds and seize the moments in which there's a failure or something doesn't go the way we mean for it to do, and put a spin on that and turn it into something positive. And I think that's what Susan's going to talk about this morning. And I'm really excited about having her on the show. And guess who's coming in right now as I just was talking about you. I'm going to get my computer and pull out of the way so they can come in over here. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll take my rice cakes. Speaking of taking failure and turning it into success, is my diet failure is the rice cakes, you see. Trying to make up for the 4 Reese cups I ate last night before I went to bed. And if you're tuned in there this morning, give us just a few minutes to transition and get my stuff out of the way so Susan can get her stuff in here. I may ask a few
Well, it'd
questions.
be great.
I'll ask
It'll
them over
be
here.
great when we can get that $150 box we need to go to that commercial break right here.
Yeah, this would be where the commercial break would be. Y'all bear with us.
Okay. Oh, I just now got Susan's message.
So what was she trying to find you and then you're not responding? Morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Your eyes look so pretty.
Well, thank you.
I don't know if the
Wow.
viewers can see that, but it looks really pretty
Oh,
in here.
thank you.
Let's
Thank
see
you.
now. 3 times in 2 years and 1 month. Now, I've had the opportunity to interview you,
Yes.
and once again, it's a privilege. I love the way you've taken the way you've taken life that has come your way and turned it into a positive perception. When I first met you, you were working on your first book. I keep wanting to say Suddenly Susan, but I know that was the TV show.
I think that was on TV. Only to Susan.
Only to Susan,
Yes.
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 It only happens to Susan and no one else, yes.
Exactly. Or at least, it felt that way at the time. So,
But
you're right.
Amen.
you know, I think what would be interesting is to kind of catch people up on
Sure.
what's going on. Let's start with the book Only to Susan
Okay.
and do a quick overview and get us up to today and where we are.
Sure. I was very fortunate to publish Only to Susan. Had my launch party actually on my birthday, which is April 1st, 2012. We released Only to Susan, and the launch went great. The book was doing great. I was enjoying being able to share and have some speaking engagements. And then in September of that year, I suffered a stroke. So it was kind of like all the momentum that I had gained as a result of my first book just went south. Prior to that, I had lost my father very unexpectedly and suddenly in January of 2010. And so now I'm dealing with this, taking care of my mother who also has cancer, taking care of Austin. I'm a single mom, an only child. But we persevered. That was again in September. I was in an inpatient rehab center for about a month. And then I spent about 6 months in an outpatient rehab center. But in January, only a few months after my stroke, I lost my mom. After that, in the end of July of 2013, I'm diagnosed with breast cancer just days before my wedding. And so it has been a journey the last few years. And I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready, the last time I was here with you, it was a cold day, just like today.
Yes, it was.
But the night before I joined you, my dear friend and hairstylist, Jennifer Crum, came over to my house, and I decided before I started chemo, I was going to take my own hair.
I was going to say, the last time you were here, you had no hair.
I had no hair. And I remember thinking, even though at that time we were just audio, we
Exactly.
were video, but I had the hardest time trying to decide what I was going to wear on my head. And I think once I got here, I just took it off anyway.
You did. You were, and one of the things that impressed me with your ordeal was, I remember you were over in North Carolina recuperating from the stroke, and you were sending messages back via Facebook, and it's like how this woman just has wham, wham, wham. When it rains, it pours,
Mm-hmm.
and she just kept dusting herself off, getting
That's right.
right back up, and there's. As we've talked about some of the situations that I've dealt with, there's some strength that I have drawn from you and some knowledge, and then of course some of the posts you put up on Facebook sometimes has a deeper meaning to me than 5 years ago would have, or 6 years ago.
Right.
And I just, I want to thank you for that. This is, I was so excited when I was talking with Mary and she said you were going to be here today. I'm like, oh wow, not much time to prepare, but all I
Well, you
don't
told me
need.
to get guests, Woody, so I did.
And so the great thing about Susan is I don't have to do a lot of research, because a lot of it's because of the other interviews and just getting to know you. And then 3 years ago when we actually first met was at the first Old Oak Festival when they brought it back.
Yes.
And so over the last 3 years I've kind of gotten to know you and lose contact but coming back. There's something that there's a positive energy. And see, today this positive energy is for Mary.
Oh.
She's been kind of down and she's had some struggles going on, so
I actually said that earlier.
And everyone does. You know, that's the first thing. If I'm speaking or talking to somebody that, you know, I don't think my battles are my battles and your battles are your battles. I don't ever pretend to think that I go through something that nobody else does. We all have to encounter adversity, and it's just knowing kind of how to prepare because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Just like today we're talking about the gift of failure. It's going to happen. So let's prepare and let's plan for it and let's learn to accept it and learn to make the best of the situations.
I had, speaking on that very subject, I had seen a post the other day or some comments that were made about the most successful people known for that one success, but people have no idea to all of the failures.
We see them in the light that they're in today.
And I like the old joke, I am very successful at finding what doesn't work.
Yes. Exactly.
But let's talk about, when I look at your life, I don't see failures. I see a lady who has struggled. I mean, she's had to put that, I'll call it the man armor on because you're a single mother and you had to be a woman surviving alone in a man's world, so to speak. And I don't see that as failure. So talk to me about what you're considering your failures that you've turned into success.
Well, the first thing I would say, you know, I think failure has such a negative connotation. Anytime we hear the word failure, we think doom. We think, yes, it's a very negative connotation. I even looked up the word yesterday on Wikipedia, and it defines failure as the state or condition of not meeting a desirable or intended objective and may be viewed as the opposite of success. And I thought, you know, if I could contact Mr. Webster or Mr. Wikipedia, I would like just dare them, encourage them to change the definition, because to me, I would define it as an opportunity to be successful again. And I think Henry Ford, I love his quote.
It's a chance to regroup.
Yeah, exactly. Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently. So I love that quote from him. And again, you're right. Instead of looking at failure as a negative, I think we have to almost restructure our mindset and our thinking and focus on the positive. Failure is an opportunity if we will learn from it and we learn from our mistakes and we try again, because nothing great, in my opinion, has ever been achieved without failure.
Or pain.
Or pain. You know, the greatest of people, as you've mentioned, we see them in the success and the light that they're in today. We don't always see their past. But a lot of great people have failed, and in turn, they've learned a wealth of knowledge and strategy from their mistakes. And, you know, again, if you're not failing at something, you're not trying at something either.
You know the little notepads, the little sticky notepads we have?
Yes.
Do you know that glue on the back was a failure?
I have that in my notes.
Yes, ma'am.
It is a great story.
It is. It is.
Because the gentleman, if I'm not mistaken,
He was trying to do something stronger.
He was trying to use it to mark his hymnal. The song in his hymnal, church hymnal. I think he was a pianist or an organist, but I have that somewhere in here. I did not know that until I was researching this topic earlier this week, and I thought,
so we've done some of the same research.
how amazing is that, you know?
Don't let him kid you.
So-
Research. You got lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said I'd rather be lucky than good.
But yes. Another quote that I love is, "Don't let today's disappointment cast a shadow on tomorrow's dream."
Gosh, that's hard to do.
Don't let today's disappointment cast a shadow on tomorrow's dream. It's also like a quote I've heard someone else say, that worry is a debt we may not owe. You know, so why do we let the disappointments of life and let worry steal us of today? You know, if today was our last day on this earth, would we spend it
Worrying about.
wallowing around in worry and focusing on the disappointments? I don't think we would. I think we would pick ourselves up and put that armor on and just reach down deep inside of us and conjure up the strength that we need to do to move forward.
In the Army, they call that intestinal fortitude.
Okay.
But one of the, I look at the issues of my life, and once I quit looking at these issues in my life as problems I have to deal with or overcome, and I started looking, okay, my life is this. These are the factors in my life. I was able to start moving. I was able to get 2 steps forward before taking 2 steps back instead of 1 step forward. And I built upon that and just kept going. And I don't have problems in my life, I have life. Because life is a group of problems.
You're living.
Exactly. And one of the things I used to be so bad about, I mean, nobody can imagine that I'm impatient. I mean, she's not hearing me.
I'm listening.
But learning to be patient with myself and quit judging myself and start looking at things from a positive aspect. And so many times I know what I need to do, but I don't have that drive, or I have that one issue that's bothering me with the depression, and I just want to lock myself inside and close the world out. And I have found that over time, I'm a rapid cycler with bipolar disorder, and they've got me diagnosed as bipolar mixed. I cycle several times a day. Some people will not go without cycling for months, but I'm on a constant, so I'm automatically tired all the time. And I had to quit focusing on the negative, and I had to turn it around and look at it. It's just life.
It is.
And
I think that's the first thing you put on the table is, it is just life.
And everything, I've always tried to, okay, my goal today is to get to the beach. So, I've made this trip many times. I'm really not interested in the scenery down and back. I've got that one down pretty much. I have an end destination.
Yes.
And when I stopped living my life with that, I actually started living. And I told my wife last night, I said, you know, I like where I am. Yeah, I'm upset with myself because I did these things right here. But I look back a year ago, 5 years ago, and I see where I am. And the interviews that I've done with you, you've played an instrumental part over the last 3 years through the knowledge that you've shared with me. Now, you were talking about the list you sent me, define success on your own terms. When I did that, I realized, wow, I've already been successful. And I was living in that mode. I never realized it. I never enjoyed it because I was trying to get to that next level. So let's go with your outline here that you've done, and let's talk a little bit about that. And
I think that's one of the mistakes that we make. We so want to compare ourselves to someone else without looking at ourselves in the mirror. Because what I may define as success or as failures may not be the same thing that you would define as success or failures. And I think acknowledging that, and you've already talked about that, acknowledging that is one of the first steps. If you have very rigid ideas of what it means to succeed, I think you're going to find yourself to be very disappointed. There's one thing that's certain in life, it's that nothing is certain in life. And I've learned that a long time ago. So why pin yourself to something that may or may not happen in life? The second thing is finding value in failure, not defining success on your own terms, and then finding the value in the failure. Because I really do believe, and you've heard me say, my breast cancer was a gift. And I also have come to realize that failure is too a gift. I think if you utilize it, and if it's your choice. It's just like with my breast cancer. That was not my choice, but I could choose how I respond.
Exactly.
When we have failure occur in our life, it may be nothing that was any fault of our own, but how are we going to respond to it?
I've said the same thing to her this morning.
It's our choice. We do have that choice. So, perhaps if you're looking for a job and you don't ace an interview, you could either decide that you failed at that interview, or maybe you succeeded in learning something.
I know what I'm going to do different.
That's going to help you the next time, which might be an even better opportunity than the one that you just had. Almost everyone knows Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. And maybe people don't. Maybe the younger generations don't know that.
Never played a minute of basketball until his senior year.
Cut from his high school basketball team. But most don't know that Walt Disney was once fired from a newspaper for a lack of ideas and creativity, and his production company went bankrupt. Walt Disney.
Did you also know that Walt Disney has a dishonorable discharge from the United States Army?
I did not know that.
I'll tell you something else. The next time you see a picture of him, look at the wall behind him. It is a replica turned upside down of his dishonorable discharge, and they said he would never amount to anything.
Wow. Isn't
when
that
they kicked
amazing?
him out.
And look at the masterpiece in Orlando today.
Exactly.
And everybody loves Lucille Ball. She was told that she had no talent, and she should leave Murray Anderson's drama school. With all of Dustin Hoffman's success, it's hard to believe that he worked as a janitor and an attendant in a mental ward because he failed in his first attempt as an actor in New York. And can you imagine Bob Dylan getting booed off the stage in high school talent show? What would have happened to Dr. Seuss's actually burned the manuscript of his first book, which he wanted to do after it was rejected by 27 publishers? And it's also hard to fathom that Steven Spielberg not getting accepted to UCLA Film School.
Wow.
Because of average grades.
Yeah.
And it's easy to forget that Steve Jobs was fired from Apple at 30 years old, and Oprah Winfrey was once told she wasn't fit for television and was fired as a news anchor. And I credit all of that to the book, The Road to Success is Paved with Failure. That's by author Joe Green. A great book of great illustrations of people, again, that we see today and may not realize not just a failure, but the many failures it took them to get to where they are today.
And sometimes, I know in a situation with me personally, I didn't have a higher level of success, and it was a good thing that I didn't, because I was not prepared to handle that success. And so that was one of those blessings that turned out to be not a failure. It was, I twice put the cart in front of the horse.
Yes. But at the time, you probably didn't see that.
I felt that I had to respond right now type mentality.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so easy when you're caught up at the moment in that failure to even understand why. You know, one of my testimonies that I share is called Not Why But How, because I've learned through a lot of adversities and failures in my life, instead of continuing to ask God why, I've learned to ask Him how. How can I use this to bring glory to you? And that's been a big step. That's been a defining moment in my life.
That's really that's brilliant, actually. I'm almost sorry. Okay, now that's another note I've got to make. How? Turn the why into
How, not why.
Yeah,
not
because you're
why.
absolutely right. Everybody thinks this is the only you're the only person in the world that's ever had to go through this. That's what we think. We're isolated individuals. And as far as relating to success, I think that we get our notion from success from society. And so if society sets up this notion that these are the things that you need to, it starts in school. It starts, and you go to college, you're supposed to do this, and then it's your parents tell you you're supposed to do this, and then your peers tell you you're supposed to do this. And so this notion of success and failure is no longer subjective. It's it can be a very concrete and objective thing.
Exactly.
One of the hardest things for me to grasp the concept of that success and financial gains from what you do, there is no correlation. And I was struggling with an issue about success, and I was totally missing where I was being successful. And my boss and mentor and friend of 30 years sat me down and he said, look, you've got a pretty obscured view of success. You don't realize you're successful. You don't realize you're working at one of the premier stations, rock stations in America, one of the first that ever went on the air. You don't understand all of this and what it means for you to be at this place where you are in time, and for you to do what you did with the Arbitron numbers. That's one of the things I've always been, you can give me some statistics and I can make those statistics fit what I'm trying to sell.
Yes.
You
And
know?
if we had
So I never put much stock in that. You live by the numbers, you die by the numbers.
Yes.
But when it was brought to my attention some things that I had done that hadn't been done, then I realized that was success. And then from that point, I started making different decisions based on different ideas of success. And I think Mary was one of those people that was supposed to be put back into my life. We took a class together out at Tuscaloosa, the HMHU course they offer for small businesses. And during the course, we met a couple of times. She came out of the studio and we talked, and then we went our separate ways. And about 5 weeks ago, where did we meet? What happened? Was it a Facebook message? Well, I don't even remember how we got back together.
I think it's because I was out in Colorado for a while, and everybody was, "Oh, are you having fun? What are you doing out in Colorado?" And I think it was during that period of time that
You had just got back from Colorado.
Yeah, and you had another issue that we were looking for a fiddle player. You were looking for a fiddle player.
Oh yes, that's right. That's right.
I know lots and lots of musicians, so I guess he figured I'd be able to come up with one of those.
I did.
I think I did. So, and then we're like, this might be something we can be successful at. Let's try it. Let's take another stab. It can't get any worse than what it is. In my life.
And for me, she was one of the missing pieces. My biggest obstacle was I needed to be able to duplicate myself. Well, I have a female version of me over there. There's so many.
I don't know what to think about that.
There's so many things that I have not gone into detail and explained to her. She's already picked up and already working on it and doing. She's doing the things that I wanted to teach her to do. So that's putting me in my objectives ahead of the game, and I think that between the two of us that we're onto something good. We have the right idea of where we're approaching the show from. It is to Number one, educate the people to how our government works. Number two, get the people to participate. Number three, don't complain about it without giving a solution. You know, we all agree that these are the problems, so we don't need to rehash it. So this was kind of the premise of how we started the show. And it's just growing into more and more. We've had Tim Massey on a couple of times. We're going to have him back tomorrow. We had you on. We had Amy Rose from town of Greenville. She's, well, they should be getting back to work now with the snow starting to clear off, but she has some department heads that are going to be on with us. So we're taking this in a direction that we want it, and we're learning as we go. I said, well, let's just go out there and just throw it out there. She said, we're not ready. I said, no, but we can figure it out as we go. And now we've got a format together that we're going to start implementing. We've been telling ourselves that all week, but
I implement.
but we're
Anyway.
She's very organized and brings to the table what's needed,
Good.
and we
So-
kind of feed off each other.
The first, I want to. You guys got me over here crying this morning, so we got to get through this. I need all the knowledge that Susan has to give me, because I'm already tearing up. So the first one is to change your failures into success. Was that the first one? And then the second one,
Well, the first is define success on your
find
own
success
terms.
on my own terms.
Because just like what Woody was talking about, you know, if we had 30 people in this room this morning, and I looked at each one of them and I said, tell me what success means to you.
30 answers.
We would have 30 different answers. So just like you were talking about how society sometimes paints the picture of what we're supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like. And what is successful to me, it may not be to you, or vice versa. And so we have to define that on our own terms, not based on what somebody else is doing or based on what somebody else has done. And the
That's
second
so hard.
one
So hard.
is to find the value in your failures.
Value.
Yes.
She's still at the stage, I failed again. Instead of forgiving herself and moving on, she's stuck with that. She's got all of the issues in her life are coming together, and she's stuck in that mindset, and she's really struggling to get out of it. But
I'm
the
the kind
other
of
thing we
person-
haven't mentioned is the fear.
And we're going to talk about that.
I think she's at the fear stage, but
Well,
I
I'm the
could
kind
be
of
wrong.
person, if one thing is wrong, everything's wrong. It's hard for me to, especially if it's one big thing. Even if everything else is good, if there's, it's so hard for me to be in the moment and to do that if there's, but anyway, go ahead. I'm listening, taking notes.
The third thing I want to talk about quickly is to act on what you've learned. Anything can be useful if we learn from it. And then do something with that knowledge. It's one thing to learn from our failures, but then take it and do something. Make a difference. The second part of that, it's where I think we get tripped up a lot, and understandably so, and that's we know that consistency is crucial to creating positive change. You're doing it in order to learn from it and grow from it. But on the other hand, we know the definition of insanity. That's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So there's a fine line there, in my opinion, as far as when it comes to acting on what we've learned and being able to do it consistently and learn from it. But there's no magic formula for creating the lives we visualize, and no one can tell us what to keep doing and what to do differently. We have to be able to gauge for ourselves what's working and where we could improve, and then we have to keep going. We have to keep going, knowing full and well there are no guarantees. 4 is focus on the process and not the results. Just because especially when I was working at Tusculum, and I would tell the staff a lot of times that just because maybe we didn't reach a certain goal, that didn't necessarily mean we were not successful.
Look at what we did accomplish and how much good we can do with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just because you don't reach a specific goal you set, that doesn't mean you can't still do what you'd like to do. It's not over just because you didn't create a specific outcome. And if you keep doing what you love, you keep doing what you're passionate about, you inevitably are going to identify new possibilities that's going to be fulfilling. And I think that's so important. If you look back over the year, and maybe you look at things that you failed at, how passionate were you about those? How fulfilling were those things in your life? Another benefit of adopting this kind of approach is it's easier to be mindful when you focus on the steps, as we were just talking about.
Yes.
Instead of focusing on the ultimate destination, focusing on each step that it takes to get there. And again, that doesn't mean you stop setting goals and you stop measuring your progress. It just means that each step will fuel your sense of meaning, your sense of joy, and ultimately your accomplishment.
Your sense of purpose and overall
Absolutely.
Well, we've
Purpose
been
is
talking
so
about
important.
a lot, Woody and I have been talking about goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for some people, particularly people who get caught up in this idea of perfectionism, where everything has to, if you set a goal, that means you have to meet that goal. And so I think some people will just avoid setting goals, period, for fear of what will happen if you don't reach that goal.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think, as part of your suggestion for turning life's failures into successes, that it's important to have goals in place?
Absolutely. And somewhere in my notes, I talk about the SMART goals. If you've heard of the SMART acronym, when you set your goals, they need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be, SMA. They need to be attainable. They need to be realistic, and they need to be timely. And so anytime you set a goal, you
Okay.
need to
Can you
use
give
that
me those
acronym.
again? What-
That was good.
What is this acronym?
Specific.
Specific.
The acronym is SMART.
Uh-huh.
So S is specific, M is measurable, A is attainable, R is realistic, and T is timely. And we may talk a little bit about that if we have time, because I know I have those in here somewhere.
Well, we know the boss. We can go as long as we
You're-
want.
I like that. So focus on the positive, not the results. Next is accept that it isn't always personal. As much as we'd like to believe that hard work always pays off, sometimes there's things that are beyond our control. Sometimes it has nothing to do with what we did.
One of the things that my dad did with me when he would say, "Now, son, this is business. This is not personal."
Yes.
Okay? So that became kind of a mantra. If I needed to talk to him, "Dad, this is business. This is not personal."
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, we went to this place that we both understood, and we were able to communicate like that.
Some things are just harder to do for others. And again, that's where I think each person has to define for themselves what their success is going to be and how they look and define failure. An example, if we go to 7 interviewers for sportscaster jobs, but every time you're up against industry veterans, your failures may have a lot to do with who you were competing against. And that's something else to keep in mind. If I came in here and applied for a job to be an anchor with you,
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't qualify. There's a lot more people who have experience and knowledge to do what you do than what I do. And sometimes you have to realize that and think, did I really fail? Because maybe I wasn't well
Or did I
equipped.
set myself up for failure?
Or was I well equipped to try to attain and accomplish something that I was setting out to do? The next one is create your own blessings. And this is very short and sweet. People who are open to new ideas and possibilities are more willing to engage with those kinds of people. And again, it's how we respond. It's how we choose. I'll never forget last year, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was right at the beginning of school. So Austin is making that big transition from elementary school to the middle school, and
He should be in high school by now, right?
he's in seventh.
Seventh,
We're
okay.
getting there. We're getting there. But I remember him. He tried out for basketball. He was too so overwhelmed with my breast cancer diagnosis and the treatments and everything going on. He just didn't have an interest in a lot of things. He didn't want to try out for football. He didn't want to get involved in this. But he did decide, after I had gone through some of my treatments and I think he realized I was going to be okay, he went out for basketball. And he made the first cut, the second cut, got down to the third, fourth, or last cut. And I remember he came home, and I was sitting on the couch, and he looked at me and he said, Mom, I didn't make the team. And I'm like, oh, it's one of those mom moments, like, where's the, what to say as a mom book, where is it?
This is a bad conversation.
And, we sat there for a minute and we talked about how he had given his best and how successful he had been to make it as far as he made it, because some of the boys didn't even make it as far as he did.
That's when you pull the Michael Jordan story out.
Yeah, but then he looked at me and you know what he said? Mom, the reason I didn't make the team is because there were boys better than me. And I thought, wow. For him to be, I guess at that time, 12.
Now let me ask you a
years old.
question. How did that affect his self-esteem?
It bothered him for a little while.
But
once
ultimately,
once he accepted that how hard he had worked and how far he had gotten, he was good with it. He wasn't down and out. He knew that Austin has learned, I think, through a lot of lessons in life, that you do try and try again. And that's where that adage he came from I shared a minute ago with the fine line of the definition of insanity. But he continued to try and try again. And that's what we have to do. We have to accept that maybe, again, someone's better than us if it's a job. And that's another thing. With failure and success, are we talking about finances? Are we talking about family? Are we talking about jobs? Are we talking about ourselves? Are we talking about our children, our sports, our hobbies? It's such a broad spectrum. When we decide and focus on, are we successful or are we not successful at something, that's where I think we have to be very specific. And going back to the very first thing we talked about is realizing what that means for us and to us.
You've got a question this morning.
Yes.
Are you ready for questions, or did you have a little bit more that you wanted to?
Let me, here is the SMART goals. Let me share that really quickly. I want to make sure I shared that, and I think I did. Excuse me, number 7 is get smart. So it is entirely possible that you failed because you set yourself up for failure. Woody mentioned that earlier. So the SMART goals again, be specific. Make sure they're measurable, that you can measure your goal, that they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're timely. And that's a whole nother hour's worth of discussion.
Yes.
We can do it another time. But for instance, if you'd like to start a business, but you have a full-time job, a 3-month-old baby, this might not be the best time to start a new job, because it's more realistic to believe that you can succeed once you make adjustments in your schedule than when you're overwhelmed by life, if it's family or work or responsibilities.
Yep.
So, yeah, let's take a question.
Okay. This question's from Tom Schumar this morning. He says, what, in your opinion, would be the word, status, or plateau for someone that neither wants failure or success? I mean, is there a middle ground? I'm thinking on the lines of, let's say, school and report cards. A student, or let's say child, is judged by a system of success by receiving A's or B's, and failure by receiving D's or F's. Where does a child stand by receiving C's, average, I guess? Who are the people in the middle ground between success and failure? From the time we enter school, our lives are judged by failure or success. Do you think we push kids too hard to just think success is the answer? That's a long question too.
That is a long question, so I'll answer the last one because that's the one I remember. I really do. Chemo brain exists. It's really hard. That's why I unfortunately have to use a lot of notes because of my mind and my memory. But actually, I've done a lot of research in looking at that. Repeat the last question one more time. About the.
Do you think we push kids too hard to just think success is the answer?
You know, I think that's obviously each family's individual decision. I think we need to push children to succeed. But going back to what Mary shared earlier about how society defines it.
And school systems define it with the A-B.
Yes, exactly. So can you be successful in school and not make straight A's? Can you be successful in school and be a C student?
Yeah.
Can you be successful in life as a C student?
Right.
And yes, you can. That is each individual. You know, that's like there is no. Well, yeah, we have this group of people, but they had the tools from birth to be successful.
Right. Which measuring stick are we using? When I was in high school, I wasn't a straight A student. I was an AB, maybe a C. Oh, actually, I will share this. The only C in high school I made was in home ec. So, but I was an AB student. I graduated with honors, but then I went to take the ACT test to go to college. I bombed the ACT. I'm not even going to tell you what I made on it. And of course, everybody says, you know, it's the first time you take it again. So I take it again because statistically, you're going to score higher.
Right.
Guess what I did?
Scored lower.
2 points lower. But fortunately, because of my GPA, I was still admitted to Tusculum at that time. And honestly, right now, they have raised their academic standards.
Right.
I probably could get accepted, but I would have to take a lot of remedial classes to get to where
You'd spend your first year.
Defined.
Your first year would be in those remedial classes.
Exactly. But, you know, I graduated in 3.5 years with honors. So, you know, as far as education goes, you can see there were areas that I feel like I was successful, but someone else may view their child, if they weren't an AB student, they had to have straight A's, they had to make a 28 on the ACT, you know, that's success. I think we encourage our children, and again, look at all the levels, look at their personal life. Look at their hobbies, their sports, their friends.
Their social skills.
Even their spiritual life. You know, where in all of that are we successful? And I think we do push our children. I push Austin to be successful. But if Austin comes home with a C, and that's the best Austin could do, then I don't punish him for that. If that is his best, because Austin is going to be different from Trent and Garen and Josh and, you know, Carter. I mean, everybody is different. But I think it's so important, and I've got some notes in here somewhere too, and this may sound crazy, but even celebrating our failures. You know, we always focus and celebrate the successes. But what about the failures? Right. Because sometimes those failures are defining moments to get us on the path to be successful.
Right.
So that was from Tom. I don't know if I answered his question well enough, but the short answer, in my opinion, is I think we do push our children to be successful, but we have to know what our children's capabilities are. We have to
be realistic.
I think there's a distinction that Tom's trying to make here, and I think it is important to this conversation. The distinction between just because you make C's in school does not mean that you are not defined as successful. Like, that what we're talking about this morning in terms of success is how whether you feel successful and whether you feel successful and whether I feel successful and what we do with our failures. And so there's always going to be a bell curve. There's always going to be a bunch of people that are very, very, very successful, and in society their success is going to be reflected with however that is, with big cars, big houses, big whatever.
Right.
And then there's going to be a whole bunch of us who are in the middle, and then there's going to be just a few people down here who are failures.
Right.
So, or quote unquote failures. So I think what Tom is getting at is the distinction between the societal standards of what failure means and what failure and success mean on individual levels.
Well, he made this comment and asked this question here. Who are the people in the middle ground between success and failure? And well, Tom, I guess that's pretty much all of us folks that are tuned in this morning. Because we've had success in our lives, and we, well, like you are at that stage of your life that you're starting to back off and enjoy and reflect on your life and your successes. So, that's, we are those people.
Let me just jump ahead a little bit, something I wanted to share. I love to play off of acronyms, and so I had some other notes based on the word failure. And the A in failure, I wrote down, is avoid the typical model. And this may apply, Tom, to what he's getting at.
Right.
Change your mental model of success and failure. Most people operate with the mental model that there's success, you, and then failure. So you're in the middle, okay? Success, you, and failure.
Is that an accurate assumption?
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is too.
And I think we see ourselves in the middle, with success on one side and failure on the other. So we do everything we can to move toward success and away from failure.
Yes.
But what if we reconfigured the model? Wish we had a dry erase board.
Yeah.
If we reconfigured the model and we put ourselves first, then failure, then success. Instead of viewing failure as something to be avoided, we have to avoid failure in life
We have
be
to go through
successful.
failure to be successful.
It's a stepping stone. And that's why I wonder if society could adapt to that kind of model where it's you, the stepping stone of failure that you have to have inevitably in most cases to get to success. Because I think that's the path to success, and that's where we receive the most gratification, is when we've experienced failure to get there. So, in other words, success is the destination and failure is how we get there.
I like that. We had another comment.
Okay.
Ray said, kids need to know there are second and third places. Not everyone gets a trophy. Slackers get less than the dedicated ones.
That's very true. And another great example. I keep talking about Austin, but he's like...
He's your example.
He's my example.
He's the one you're training.
Austin, out of the blue, decided that he was going to wrestle this year at the middle school. And the first tournament that he participated in, he received a 4th place medal. We could not have been any happier if that had been the big belt that they win for championships. 4th place, it wasn't first, but do you have any idea how much we celebrated and we were so excited?
Sure,
that
you're
he got
in
fourth
the group of winners.
Yes. And that's okay that, it wasn't 3rd or 2nd or 1st. It was 4th. And I say that to say once again, a lot of people, a lot of society would view that he failed because he didn't place first.
Now my question to you is, when he got that 4th place ribbon and he got that feeling and that satisfaction, did it encourage him to try harder to get a 3rd, 2nd, or 1st place ribbon?
The next tournament we went to, which was the second tournament, he left there with a third place.
Okay.
The next tournament we went to, he left there with a third place. This past weekend, we left with a fourth place. But
He's
again,
consistently in that top five.
But we didn't view him going from a third to a fourth again as a failure. It was a great success because the talent at that tournament.
The guy that beat him was better than him, and he understood
yes,
that.
and the talent at that tournament this weekend was levels above the other tournaments that he had participated in. The competition was harder. The competition was tougher.
Even though he got a fourth place ribbon,
That's right.
he still had set himself up at a higher level when he entered that particular tournament.
And let me say this, whether it's children or adults, because we even attempt, we're successful. Do you know how many people want to do what you all are doing and they're sitting still?
They're afraid for whatever reason, and I deal with
fear.
these fears.
It's fear. So, even with children, they may step out and do something and they may not get a medal, they may not get recognition, they may not get a pat on the back, but because they had the courage to step out, we need to let them know how proud we are of them and how successful they are and how successful they're going to be.
And if they like it out here, that's okay too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think in my life I have a whole bunch of list of things. Well, I have a bunch of list of things that I've done, and I may not have done the best job at them, but
Yes,
at least I did them,
you
and
did
I'm
'em.
happy about that. But I have this other list of things that I didn't do, that I wished that I had done, and that list to me looms more in my mind than the list of things that I
Yes.
I wish I could go back to some of those moments and just do it and just just not be afraid of what anybody thinks and just go ahead and do whatever it was that I wanted to do. So
Well, like where I am and what I'm doing, I see, and I even have a list of what we'll just call them failures, up getting to the point to where I am today. I don't view those, I kind of view them like what you said, I view those as learning opportunities.
Stepping stones.
Because I'm taking those and I'm trying to make sure that the next set of mistakes I make are different mistakes.
Yes.
Because I know I'm going to make mistakes. The key is controlling as much of that out of control aspect that I can. And by taking the mindset, I'm able to progress. Someday she will feel a little bit down because it wasn't quite as good as what she wanted it to be.
Of course.
And I'll be on top of the world because of one little bitty thing
Yes.
that we were able to convey to the listeners that we know we got that point across.
Yes.
And I'm excited about that because I realize how that's going to take us further. And what she's concerned with, I'm like, guess what? We're going to do those mistakes over and over. We're just going to make them in different ways, but we're making progress. And here's the path that we're doing that. And she started. See, she's trying to adapt a new mindset for her life. She's at a life-changing
now
point.
listen. Now stop, because I want to say this. I have the right mindset.
She
we all
does.
have the right mindset. It's putting all this stuff you're saying into practical use
Yes.
and getting up every day and reminding yourself of these little steps. That's the challenge. It's almost like we need a copy of your book, or we need you every day. Like if I had you every single morning at 6 o'clock and you were sitting in my house and you said to me, okay, today, Mary, we're going to take your successes, we're going to take your failures and we're going to use them as stepping stones to your successes, and this is your goals for today, and these are your 30 days. It would be a whole lot easier. But
Time to brand your version of Tony Robbins takes.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. I'm inspired by you personally, and I'm really glad that you came in today because it sort of reset my my invigoration and excitement clock personally. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself and also about your books, where we could find your books? And
Sure.
All the major bookstores.
Oh yeah. Well, we're getting there. I did self-publish my first book, and I want to say that because I wasn't successful. Let's start using that word instead of failed. I wasn't successful in securing a publisher.
But see,
So,
I'm going
I
to stop you right here and say, girlfriend, if you have written a book and self-published it, that is a success. To
It
me,
is a
in my
success.
mind, that's a huge success.
That
There are
is a
not very many
success.
people who can write a book, period. Never mind have it out there for
I've been 7 years
success.
on mine.
But you were unsuccessful. Or
Securing the publisher,
Right.
I was unsuccessful. But self-publishing the book, I was successful. And again, that was in 2012. And this is what, 15
15,
now?
just started.
14, 13. I had my manuscript completed for my second book. And my second book is called And I Did. ... And I was fixing to send my manuscript to my self-publishing agent. And I was introduced by a mutual friend to a publisher in Johnson City. And so I asked her if, would she be willing to review my manuscript? And she said, oh yes, I would. And of course, she gave me the prefaces that, if it fits kind of what we do, blah, blah, blah. So she said, I'll get back with you in a week. A week comes, a week goes, and I'm like emailing her, hi, just checking in. But about 2 weeks later, I got an email from her that the short and the long of it was she had accepted my manuscript. And not only had she obviously read my manuscript, she bought my first book and read it as well.
oh,
So I now have a publisher, which I'm very grateful for, Jane Carroll Publishing, JCP, in Johnson City. But both of my books are available locally at Richland Creek Gifts and Three Blind Mice and the Christian Bookstore.
okay.
They're also available online, Amazon.
Which Christian bookstore? Because we have two here.
We do. The Christian Bookstore located near Rocky's Pizza.
Okay, over in the
Yes.
Green Village Shopping
Yes.
Center area.
Yes. And then you can also get them on my website, which is susancrumteague.com.
Convenient.
Yes.
It's a good name. Good
Yes.
name for it, yeah.
Yes.
She thought something.
Thought it was something easy. So, last thing I want to share in regards to a gift of failure is finding those opportunities. I forgot where I recently heard this story, but I thought it was really cute. There was a young boy who was out looking to get a job. Everywhere he went, he heard, we're not hiring. We're not hiring. So he decided to set a new goal. For each company he visited, he would either get a job or sell them a not hiring sign, which he would make.
Now that,
It's pretty intuitive, huh?
Yeah.
figure out your marketplace.
Yes, exactly. So when we think outside of the box, and sometimes I say don't even just throw the box out the window, but when we think outside of the box, we might not get what we want, but I think we're more apt to get what we need. Sometimes these opportunities can be the most fulfilling and empowering times of our lives. Regardless of losing, we can succeed. Failure is often a defining moment. It's a crossroad sometimes in our journey of life.
I've tried to quit using
Absolutely.
the word failure
Mm-hmm.
and look at it, this is another opportunity in life.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
Susan,
You know,
do
just-
you do any speaking
Yes.
in the community? Because I'd like to know where,
I do.
more about that. Where you could come and actually hear, one of your, I don't want to say lectures is such a terrible
I
word.
do.
But
I'm doing a lot of seminars. I do kind of, it's twofold. I love to share my testimony. And a lot of times I do that with women's ministries or at churches
Right.
or even, civic organizations, clubs, or just a coffee group with women. But I'm also doing personal and motivational seminars that really, where I, like the SMART acronym, for example, where I really drive down and help people really understand what that means. I don't know if you all have heard, it's kind of it's not really a new concept. It's new to me. The gentleman, I think there were a couple of gentlemen who wrote this book, was like back in maybe 1999. But last year, for 2014, I chose one word, and I challenged other people to choose one word as well. I do a Saturday morning with Susan. Right now I'm doing it the first Saturday of each month. So I challenged the ladies there a year ago to choose one word that at the end of 2014, it would describe their life, looking back over 2014. What do you want your life to be? What do you want to see at the end of 2014?
I know what my word would be already, but anyway.
Chaotic.
Happy.
Happy. There you go.
Yeah,
Happy.
she's.
It's so simple. I just want to be happy.
Instead, and I have a bucket list. I believe in bucket list. I believe in New Year's resolutions, although what's the statistic? 86% of them fail in the first 6 weeks or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I still believe in that. But I really find value in that one word. And I kind of cheated last year because I couldn't come up without hyphenating it. So I hyphenated it to make it one word. But my one word was new beginnings. I had my last chemo treatment on New Year's Eve of 2013. So I wanted a new beginning with my health. I started my own foundation, the Susan Crum-Teague Foundation, to help those here in Greenville and Greene County battling breast cancer. I had some new beginnings last year, and my word this year that I want when I look back over 2015 is more. I don't want to get satisfied and complacent with where I am. I feel like in my spiritual life, my trust and my faith in God is greater than it's ever been. But you know what? I want even more.
You want to do something with that.
I want more. I want
So-
more for me personally. I want more for my family, more for Austin, more for my my speaking engagements, my seminars. I just want more out of life. So I say that to say a lot of the seminars that I'm doing, I kind of build it around that theme, challenging people to become more. If it's more at work, more with your family, whatever it is. I have several seminars that I do
So
that
how
help
would
you
one?
define that.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in those seminars. I'm going to get real specific with because we only have a few minutes
Okay.
left. So in this last few minutes, if somebody wants to come to your seminar or get directly involved with something that you're doing, because you're a great motivational speaker, I can tell already. How specifically would they do that?
Go to my website.
Okay.
And there's on my website at the very top, I think it says speaking engagements.
Okay.
It may say seminars, but I've added a link to my website. You go in, you put your name, your information, your message to me. If you would like to for me to do a seminar or a speaking engagement, it asks you a few fields of information. Submit it. It comes to me, and then I'll follow up with the person who has submitted it.
Great.
And then as I do seminars, I try to post them on social media and on my website as well.
And I'll try to make sure to get a link up on our page to your website so that
Yeah,
people can
we'll-
go there and take a look at what
Great.
you're doing, see the book, and see. You picked a great color, by the way. I was looking at the camera. The pink is perfect for here. Now I know what I need to be
Thank
wearing.
you.
So
Well,
I'm glad
Mary-
For
it's really
those who
good.
know, when I worked at Tusculum, my whole closet was orange, and so now I say orange, or I'm sorry, pink is my new orange.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
there you
do
go.
wear a lot of pink. It's hard
And that's Tusculum orange, not Tennessee
That's right,
orange.
Tusculum
It
orange.
serves double duty, I'm sure, on
Yeah.
Saturday, football Saturday.
One of the things I find interesting, Mary is in an interesting place in her life. She is moving. She's putting her old life. She's actually restarting her entire life. So she's in an exciting place right now.
Yeah,
I
I'm going
understand.
through a divorce, so that's.
But
I
she's-
think everybody that goes through a divorce goes through that, but you always think yours is the worst. You know what
But
I mean?
she's going
Yours
through
is
other
worse.
things,
Right.
and I can see this opportunity because, see, a couple of years ago, I was in a play. It wasn't a divorce, but yes, it was a divorce from the old negative thinking. I made a conscious effort to try to start a different way of thinking. And as I've made it to where I am, and I see that Mary's going to help me even farther, and then I see where I get so caught up in the excitement, because I can see her life starting to flourish, and I'm going to get to be a part of that, and I'm going to watch her, and I'm going to be taking in all of these things that I can do for myself. But she
And you
doesn't
focus.
see that. I see great things for her.
You focus on that word happy.
Okay, that's my word.
Okay.
Happy's my word.
If you don't have one, I'll bring you one. Find an index card
Okay.
because they're sturdier. Write the word happy on that index card. Put it on your fridge, your computer screen, put it in your purse, put it in your Bible, put it somewhere where you will see that. It will constantly be reminded. And at the end of 2015,
How many
Mary, oh my gosh, I love it. I love it.
These-
I love it. And those are big.
You called it chemo brain
Oh my
earlier,
gosh.
but I have a whole stack of these. These I
I'm
can't
gonna have to
live.
get some of those.
I can't live without these.
But you write your word on there.
These are a
Okay.
staple in my
I will.
life.
And Woody, you decide what your word's going to be for 2015.
Yeah,
And you
think
write it
about
on there. Yeah, it's not something, yours I think just bam.
Well, mine, I do a lot of praying,
Mhm.
and I quit praying for the things that I wanted and started praying for what the things that are best for me are.
Does that count as
Because-
one word because I
Yes.
hyphenated it?
Yes.
Because we don't always necessarily know what's
Love it.
best for ourselves.
You're right.
We don't
think
always-
we do.
Yeah, we think we do, but that's a topic for another day too. But so I've
Absolutely.
decided that I don't want anything specific. I do want specific things, but what I generally want is to be happy. And so I've done a lot of soul searching and thinking about, happiness. So
Well, let
we
me
are-
leave you with this closing thought.
Okay.
When you see failure as a blessing instead of a curse, you will turn the gift of failure into a stepping stone that leads to the gift of success. You are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. Thank you all so much for having me this morning.
Thank you. I can't say anything to top that. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you tuning in. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, tune in. We'll have the news, and Tim Massey will be joining us again. Have yourself a great day, and please be careful out there.